I stood in that empty basement, my hands still rough from 18 months of work, and I could not believe what had just happened. This was supposed to be my forever home. My parents promised me that. I had poured $23,000 and countless weekends into transforming their abandoned storage space into a beautiful apartment. They told me it would always be mine. But then my sister Ophelia came back from California, and suddenly their promises meant nothing. Before we begin, let me know where you are watching from today. Hit that like button and subscribe if you have not already. Now, let me take you back to where this all began. My name is Marcus, and I am 28 years old. I work as a licensed electrician, a job I have held for almost 7 years now. I grew up in a modest 2-story house in suburban Ohio with my parents, Harold and Diane, and my younger sister Ophelia, who is 25. From the outside, we looked like any normal American family. We had Sunday dinners together, celebrated holidays, and took the occasional family vacation. But underneath that surface, there was always an imbalance that I could never quite put into words until much later in my life. Ophelia was born 3 years after me, and from the moment she arrived, she became the center of my parents' universe. Do not get me wrong, I do not think my parents intended to play favorites. But Ophelia was different from me in almost every way. She was outgoing where I was quiet. She was charming where I was awkward. She had this ability to light up a room just by walking into it while I preferred to blend into the background and get things done without fanfare. Growing up, I was the reliable one. When something broke around the house, I fixed it. When the lawn needed mowing, I did it without being asked. When my parents needed help moving furniture or painting a room, I was there with my tools ready. I never complained because I thought that was just what family did. You show up, you help out, you do not expect anything in return. But looking back now, I realize that my dependability made me invisible in a way. My parents knew they could count on me, so they stopped noticing me. Meanwhile, every little thing Ophelia did was celebrated like a major achievement. 3 years before the events I am about to tell you, my life took an unexpected turn. I had been dating a woman named Jessica for 4 years. We lived together in a small apartment on the east side of town, and I thought we were building a future together. Then one day she told me she had met someone else. Just like that, 4 years of my life were gone, and so was my home. Jessica kept the apartment since it was in her name, and I found myself scrambling to figure out where to live. Rental prices had skyrocketed in our area, and finding an affordable place on short notice felt impossible. I was staying on my friend Derek's couch, feeling like a complete failure when my parents made me an offer. They had a basement that had been used for storage for as long as I could remember. It was roughly 1,200 square feet of dark, damp, cluttered space that nobody ever went into except to dump more junk. My father Harold sat me down at their kitchen table and said something that would change everything. He told me that the basement was just sitting there doing nothing. He suggested that since I was handy with tools and knew electrical work, maybe I could fix it up and make it into a real living space. He said I could stay there as long as I wanted, and that once I put the work in, it would basically be mine. My mother Diane nodded along enthusiastically. She added that it would be so nice to have me close by and that I could really make something special down there. I remember feeling a warmth spread through my chest at that moment. For once, it felt like my parents were truly seeing me, truly valuing what I could bring to the table. This was not charity. This was an opportunity, a partnership of sorts. I would invest my skills and money into improving their property, and in return, I would have a stable home. It seemed like a fair deal. More than fair, actually. It felt like a gift. I started planning the renovation immediately. The basement was in rough shape, worse than I had even remembered. The concrete floor was cracked and stained. The walls were bare cinder blocks with moisture seeping through in several places. There was one tiny window that barely let in any light, and the only access was through a rickety wooden staircase from the main house. The electrical system was ancient and barely up to code, and there was no plumbing to speak of except for a floor drain. But I saw potential where others might have seen a hopeless cause. I drew up detailed plans for a complete transformation. I would install proper moisture barriers and insulation. I would put in a new electrical system with plenty of outlets and modern lighting. I would add plumbing for a full bathroom and a small kitchenette. I would lay down beautiful hardwood flooring and put up fresh drywall. I would even install an egress window and a skylight to bring in natural light. The project took 18 months of my life. I worked on it every evening after my regular job and every weekend without fail. I spent $23,000 of my own savings on materials alone. That was money I had been setting aside for years, money that could have gone toward a down payment on my own place. But I believed my parents when they said this would be my home. My friend Derek, who works as a plumber, helped me with the bathroom installation. He gave me a significant discount because we had been friends since high school, and he knew how much this project meant to me. Together, we installed a modern shower, a sleek vanity, and a proper toilet. The bathroom alone took 3 weekends to complete. The electrical work was where I really shined. I ran new wiring throughout the entire space, installed a dedicated circuit breaker panel, and put in recessed lighting that made the basement feel bright and welcoming. I added ceiling fans for ventilation and even wired in a mini split system for heating and cooling. Every wire, every outlet, every switch was installed with care and precision. For the kitchen area, I built custom cabinets myself, learning woodworking from online tutorials and a lot of trial and error. I installed a compact refrigerator, a 2-burner electric cooktop, and a microwave. There was a small sink with a garbage disposal and enough counter space to prepare a decent meal. The transformation was remarkable. What had once been a dark, forgotten hole in the ground was now a beautiful studio apartment that any young professional would be proud to call home. My parents came down to see it when I finished, and their reactions made every hour of work feel worthwhile. My father walked around touching the walls and examining the fixtures. He said he could not believe it was the same basement. My mother had tears in her eyes. She told me it was absolutely stunning and that I should be so proud. What I did not know then was that my parents were already mentally calculating how much value I had added to their property. Real estate agents later estimated that my renovation increased the home's worth by approximately $50,000, all from my labor and my money. Everything changed when Ophelia came home. She had been living in Los Angeles for 5 years, chasing her dream of becoming an actress. My parents had supported her financially throughout that time, sending her money whenever she asked. I later found out that they had given her over $60,000 during those 5 years. $60,000 to pursue a dream that never materialized. Ophelia returned with nothing but a suitcase and a mountain of credit card debt. Her acting career had consisted of a few background roles and some commercial work that never led anywhere. Her latest boyfriend, some aspiring director, had dumped her for a younger actress he met on set. She arrived at my parents' doorstep crying and broken, and immediately she became the center of attention again. I tried to be supportive at first. She was my sister, after all. I helped carry her bags into the house and listened patiently as she recounted her struggles in Hollywood, but I could not help noticing how my parents responded to her return. Suddenly, every conversation at dinner revolved around Ophelia. Every decision was made with her comfort in mind. It was like I had become invisible again, just as I had been throughout our childhood. The first warning sign came about 2 weeks after Ophelia moved back. She started coming down to my basement apartment frequently, always with some excuse. She needed to borrow a phone charger. She wanted to see how I had decorated. She was bored upstairs and thought we could hang out. Each time she would walk around my space with this look in her eyes, a mixture of admiration and something else I could not quite identify. One evening, she stood in the middle of my living area and said something that made my stomach clench. She told me that this place was amazing and that I was so lucky to have my own private space like this. She said she wished she had somewhere like this to escape to somewhere to figure out her next steps without our parents constantly hovering. I brushed off her comments at the time. Of course, she admired the apartment. I had worked incredibly hard on it. Anyone would be impressed. But then my mother started making strange remarks during our weekly dinners upstairs. She would ask if I really needed all that space just for myself. She would mention how crowded the upstairs bedrooms were with Ophelia's things. She would sigh and talk about how hard it was for Ophelia to get back on her feet when she did not have any privacy. My father joined in with his own subtle comments. He observed that Ophelia needed time and space to heal from her disappointments. He noted that she could not stay in her childhood bedroom forever, that she was a grown woman who needed a proper living situation. At first, I thought they were just venting, just processing the adjustment of having both their adult children under one roof. I never imagined they were actually considering what I now know they had been planning for weeks. The conversation happened on a Saturday evening in late October. I remember the exact date because it was exactly 18 months and 4 days after I had moved into the basement. My mother called me upstairs after dinner saying that we needed to have a family discussion. When I walked into the living room, my father was sitting in his armchair with a serious expression, and Ophelia was on the couch, her eyes red and puffy from crying. My father cleared his throat and told me that we needed to talk about the basement. He said that they had been thinking about this for a while and that Ophelia really needed her own space to get back on her feet. She was struggling, and being crammed into her old childhood bedroom was making things worse. They thought it would be best if Ophelia moved into the basement apartment. I felt like someone had punched me in the chest. I asked him what he was talking about, reminding him that I lived in the basement, that I had spent 18 months and over $23,000 renovating it. My mother reached over and patted my hand like I was an upset child. She told me that they knew I had worked so hard on it and that they were so grateful, but that I was young and healthy and had a good job. I could find another place to live. Ophelia was fragile right now. She needed this more than I did. I looked at Ophelia, expecting her to say something to defend me, to acknowledge how insane this request was. But she just sat there with tears streaming down her face, not meeting my eyes. She mumbled that she was sorry, that she did not want to cause problems, but that she really did need her own space. She said she could not get her life together while living in her childhood bedroom, surrounded by old memories. My father leaned forward in his chair. He said that he knew this was hard to hear, but that the basement was part of their house and they needed me to understand that. He said that he and my mother had discussed it and they thought it was only fair that I help out my sister during this difficult time. He gave me 2 weeks to find another place to live. 2 weeks. After 18 months of back-breaking work. After $23,000 of my own money. After all their promises that this would be my home. 2 weeks to just walk away from everything I had built. That night, after I went back down to my apartment, I sat in the darkness for hours. I did not turn on any lights. I just sat on the couch I had bought for this space, the couch I had carefully selected because it fit perfectly against the wall I had built with my own hands. I ran my fingers over the armrest and felt a rage building inside me that I had never experienced before. I thought about all the times I had dropped everything to help my parents. Every fence I had repaired, every clogged drain I had cleared, every electrical problem I had solved for free. I thought about the thousands of dollars they had sent to Ophelia over the years while I worked overtime to save every penny. I thought about how invisible I had always been, how my reliability had been taken for granted while her neediness had been rewarded. I called Derek around midnight. He answered on the 3rd ring, his voice groggy with sleep. When I told him what had happened, he was silent for a long moment. Then he said a word I will not repeat, followed by a declaration that they could not do this to me. He told me that I had put my blood, sweat, and tears into that basement and that they could not just take it away. His anger validated my own, but it also sparked something else in my mind. Could they actually do this? Legally, I mean. I had never signed a lease or any formal agreement. It was all based on verbal promises and family trust. The property belonged to my parents, that was undeniable. But what about everything I had put into it? The next morning, I called a lawyer, not to sue my parents, but just to understand my options. The attorney I spoke with, a woman named Patricia, who specialized in property disputes, listened to my story and asked me a series of questions. Did I have receipts for the materials I purchased? Yes, I had kept everything. Did I have photos documenting the before and after of the renovation? Yes, hundreds of them. Did my parents put anything in writing about our arrangement? No, nothing formal. She explained the situation carefully. The basement was part of my parents' property, and without a written agreement, I had no legal claim to the space itself. However, the items I had purchased and installed were a different matter. Appliances, fixtures, and removable improvements that I had bought with my own money could potentially be considered my personal property. If I had documentation proving I purchased them, I might have the right to remove them when I left. That conversation changed everything. I went from feeling helpless and victimized to realizing that I had more power in this situation than my parents assumed. They thought they could take everything I had built and hand it to Ophelia on a silver platter. They were wrong. I spent the next few days organizing my documentation. I gathered every receipt, every credit card statement, every photo I had taken during the renovation process. I created a detailed spreadsheet listing every item I had purchased from major appliances down to light switch covers. The total was staggering. Not counting my labor, I had physical proof of over $23,000 in purchases. Then I called Derek again and explained my plan. He laughed at first, thinking I was joking. When he realized I was serious, he said he was in. He would help me, and he knew a couple other guys who would too. We set a date for the weekend before my 2-week deadline expired. During those final days in the basement, I acted completely normal around my parents and Ophelia. I told them I had found a small apartment to rent and that I would be out by the deadline. My mother seemed relieved that there was no drama. My father nodded approvingly and said he knew I would understand eventually. Ophelia avoided eye contact with me entirely. On the Saturday of the deadline, I woke up at 5 in the morning. Derek arrived with a rented box truck at 6, along with 2 other friends from his construction crew guys named Tony and Marcus, ironically sharing my name. We worked systematically and efficiently, moving from room to room. First, we tackled the electrical system. I disconnected and removed every fixture I had installed. The recessed lights came out, leaving holes in the ceiling. The ceiling fans were taken down. Every modern outlet cover and switch plate was removed and replaced with the basic beige ones that had been there originally. The mini-split heating and cooling unit was carefully dismantled and loaded onto the truck. Derek and his crew handled the plumbing fixtures. The beautiful vanity I had installed in the bathroom was disconnected and carried out. The modern toilet was replaced with a basic model I had bought at a hardware store for $70. The rainfall shower head was swapped for a cheap plastic one. Even the kitchen sink and garbage disposal were removed. We pulled up the hardwood flooring plank by plank. Underneath was the concrete I had leveled and sealed, which I left alone since that was permanent. But the wood itself went into the truck. The custom cabinets I had built for the kitchen were unscrewed from the walls and loaded up. The countertop, the cooktop, the mini fridge, all of it went. The skylight I had installed required the most work. Tony was experienced with roofing, and he managed to remove it carefully and patch the opening with plywood and roofing material. It was not pretty, but it was weatherproof. The egress window stayed because that was a safety requirement, and I was not about to create a code violation. By 3 in the afternoon, we were done. The basement looked almost exactly as it had when I first started the renovation 18 months earlier. Bare concrete floors, cinder block walls, basic lighting from the original single bulb fixture, and that one tiny window letting in minimal light. The only remnants of my work were the sealed floor, the basic plumbing rough-in, and the upgraded electrical panel which I left because removing it would have been dangerous. My parents and Ophelia were not home when we did all this. They had gone to visit relatives for the weekend, probably assuming I would quietly move my furniture and leave. When they returned Sunday evening, I was already gone staying at a motel until my new apartment was ready. My mother's phone call came at exactly 7:43 that night. She was screaming so loudly that I had to hold the phone away from my ear. She demanded to know what I had done and called me a vandal and a thief. She said I had destroyed the basement and ruined everything. She threatened to call the police. I let her finish, then calmly explained the situation. I told her that I had not destroyed anything. I had simply removed the items I had purchased with my own money. I reminded her that I had receipts for everything and that I had consulted with an attorney who confirmed that I was within my rights. If they wanted to call the police, they were welcome to, but the officers would find that no crime had been committed. My father got on the phone next, his voice cold with fury. He called me ungrateful after everything they had done for me. He said he never thought I would be capable of something so selfish. I almost laughed at the irony. Selfish? after they had tried to steal 18 months of my life and $23,000 to give to my sister. I told him that I was sorry he saw it that way, but that I had simply protected what was mine. I wished them well and ended the call. The first few weeks after leaving were harder than I expected. Even though I knew I had done the right thing, there was a grief that came with it. I had lost my home, yes, but more than that, I had lost the illusion that my family would ever truly value me. That illusion had been comfortable, even if it was false. I moved into a small one-bedroom apartment about 15 minutes from my workplace. It was nothing special, just 700 square feet of beige walls and basic appliances. But it was mine in a way the basement never really was. My name was on the lease. No one could take it from me. I sold some of the items I had removed from the basement. The mini split unit went to a contractor Derek knew for a fair price. The custom cabinets found a buyer on an online marketplace. The hardwood flooring was purchased by a young couple renovating their first home. Altogether, I recovered about $8,000, which helped offset the costs of moving and setting up my new place. Derek proved to be an even better friend than I had realized. He not only helped with the move, but also connected me with new opportunities. He introduced me to a general contractor who was looking for a reliable electrician for larger residential projects. Within 2 months, I had transitioned from working for a small company to running my own jobs as a subcontractor, earning significantly more money. 6 months after leaving my parents' house, I had saved enough for a down payment on a small condo in a decent neighborhood. It was just 900 square feet, but it had a tiny backyard and a garage where I could set up a workshop. The day I signed the closing papers was one of the proudest moments of my life. This was mine, truly mine. Built on my own labor, paid for with my own money, secured by my own determination. I heard through extended family that my parents' basement remained empty. Apparently, neither Ophelia nor my parents could afford to renovate it again. Ophelia eventually moved out and got a job as a receptionist somewhere a far cry from her Hollywood dreams, but at least a step toward independence. Whether she ever developed gratitude for the opportunity she had stolen from me, I will never know. My relationship with my parents remained distant. My mother sent occasional text messages, her tone gradually shifting from accusatory to conciliatory. She would write things like hoping I was doing well or mentioning that Dad's knee was bothering him again. Small talk designed to rebuild a bridge without acknowledging that she had helped burn the original one down. I responded politely, but briefly. I did not hate them. Hatred takes too much energy, and I had better things to do with mine. But I also did not trust them anymore, and I was not sure I ever would again. Some boundaries once violated cannot be fully repaired. What I learned from this experience goes beyond the practical lessons about getting agreements in writing or documenting your investments. Those lessons matter certainly, and I hope anyone listening to this story takes them to heart. But the deeper lesson was about self-worth and self-protection. For most of my life, I believed that being the reliable one, the helpful one, the one who never caused problems would eventually be recognized and rewarded. I thought that if I just gave enough, sacrificed enough, contributed enough, my family would see my value and treat me accordingly. That belief was a lie I told myself to avoid confronting a painful truth. Some people will take advantage of your generosity until you have nothing left to give, and then they will blame you for having limits. Protecting yourself is not selfish. Setting boundaries is not cruel. Walking away from people who use you is not a betrayal of family values. It is an act of survival and self-respect. I gave my parents and my sister every opportunity to treat me fairly, and when they chose not to, I chose myself. That decision was difficult, but it was also necessary. Today, I am building a life that belongs to me. My condo is slowly becoming a home filled with furniture I have chosen and improvements I have made. My business continues to grow, and I have earned a reputation in my community as someone who does quality work. I have even started dating again, though I am taking things slowly this time. The woman I am seeing understands boundaries and respects mine, which feels like a revolutionary concept after everything I have been through. If you are watching this and you see yourself in my story, I want you to know that you are not alone. So many of us have family members who take more than they give, who see our reliability as an invitation to exploit rather than a gift to appreciate. Breaking those patterns is terrifying, but it is also liberating. Sometimes the people who are supposed to love you the most are the ones who teach you the hardest lessons about loving yourself. And sometimes you have to lose a family to find out who you really are. I would love to hear from you. Have you ever had to set boundaries with family members who took advantage of you? How did you handle it? Drop your story in the comments below. If this video resonated with you, please give it a like and share it with someone who might need to hear this message. And if you have not already subscribed to this channel for more stories about real people navigating difficult situations. Thank you for watching, for listening, and for being part of this community. I hope that wherever you are building a life that belongs to you. Take care of yourselves.